Hey guys, welcome to the Waypoint X Insider Show. My name is Judd, and this is episode 3. So don't miss out. Stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome back. Like I said earlier, my name is Judd, and welcome to the Waypoint X Insider Show. This is episode number 3. If you haven't already seen the first 2 episodes, I would highly recommend going and checking those out. But don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave us a like, leave us a comment, and hit that bell for all notifications. Like I said, we've got our good buddy Clayton Thorne from Texas. Hopefully he might be a co-host or being on the show a lot more often since we're having him back for episode number 3 already. But today is all about the new Jeeper. And so whether you're buying a Jeep right off the showroom floor or you're buying a used Jeep, whether you're keeping it on the road or you're going off-road, I think this episode is for you. I think everybody can take a little bit, just a little nibble out of this podcast show, whatever you want to call it, and really take it home and think about it and which way you want to go, whether you have had a Jeep for 10 plus years or you're buying your new one. So what do you think today is going to be like, Clayton? The show.
Well, I think it'll be really interesting because as soon as you talk about what are you going to get, a new Jeep or an old Jeep, I default to the Wrangler. Everybody thinks the Wrangler, but Jeep has a whole line of vehicles to meet what your
Right.
needs might be for all the different applications of what you want to do. Now, the Wrangler is one of those Jeeps that is designed to go off road. It'll do great on the highway, but it is in its own in the sand, in the mud, on the rocks, out and about. But you still have the Compass, the Liberty, and then you
Right.
even got all the old throwbacks that they don't even make anymore. The
Right.
Cherokee, the Commander. I mean, they've even got brought back the Wagoneer now, which is basically a Tahoe.
Right, and they brought back the JT, going back from the old
They
G,
did,
the J10 and stuff like that,
yeah.
which is I think cool. And if that's your flavor, I definitely would go for it. Now, new Jeep versus old Jeep, you also have to think about electronics versus non-electronic. Because those older Jeeps, it was just basically a motor, a battery, and it may you had your gauges. Now it's all this
Yeah.
computer system. You have to worry about all of that. And so those are some of the things you got to think about. What you're wanting to do with your Jeep. Are you wanting to go off road on it just a little bit, like your weekend warrior, or are you wanting to just stay on the street full time, or are you wanting to go full on rock crawler mode with it? Um, I would say I'm in between the weekend warrior and the rock crawler mode. I'm in that middle section. I would say in between that. I haven't come up with a great word for that. Um,
Well, I think one of the things though, Judd, is we need to let everybody know what we drive.
right.
I've got a 2013 JKU Rubicon that I did buy brand new.
So I have a 2009 JKU. It was just a sport when I first bought it, and I bought it used. I had 33,000 miles on it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I bought used, you bought new. We both got in the JK. Now mine's the earlier version JKU, and yours is the older version. Very similar, besides the motor and the transmission. But all in all, I
Right.
think it's pretty close to the same Jeep as far as electronics would go. So we still have this. I think we're on a level playing field as far as electronics. But like
Right.
the
And
TJs and the LJs and all that, they don't have any of that.
no. And one of the things that the LJs and the TJs have is just creature comforts. I mean, you climb up in them, they're more car-like than there are Jeep-like compared to
Right.
what we have.
Right.
And one of the things that I think people kind of also forget about is how much bigger the Gladiators are than a JKU. They are long. And when you take it off road, you really have to think about
Yes.
it's got a wider stance and it's longer. So you really got to be
Mm,
watching where you're going to be when you're trying to get around those
right.
corners.
Right. Absolutely. So I think it's really what flavor you like. Do you like the old school? Do you like the new school? Do you want reliability? Do you want to, because the older Jeeps, yes, they were built right, but they weren't, the trails are getting harder and harder, and you can build them right, but they didn't have the strength back then like they do today. I think they're a little bit stronger today as far as axles and things of that nature. That's just my
Yeah.
personal opinion, and you don't have to take that to the bank, but that's just my opinion. But like you said earlier, Jeep is not just a Wrangler. You can have the Cherokees and stuff like that, the old Jeep
Yeah.
trucks, and you
Yeah.
can you can customize it and make it a buggy. I mean, it's just up to your imagination of how far you want to take it.
You want to take it. And I really like it when you do go off road and you do see the Cherokees. You do see,
Right.
the old CJ7s. You do have the ones
Right.
that have been properly maintained over all of the years. And now
Right.
they've got the axles that they didn't have back then. They've got the axle shafts that they didn't have back then. They've got better
Right.
drive shafts. I mean, it's essentially a whole new Jeep underneath.
Right. 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 So, and I say what to look for, and what I mean by that is when you pick your vehicle, look for the rust spots, look for the problems, because anything used is going to have issues. Now, your new vehicles are going to have issues too because you got electronics involved, but really pay attention. Do your Carfax, everything like that to figure out what a good base vehicle is. And I think we both
Right.
found really solid base vehicles that is now that you want a starting point.
Right.
Now,
And one of the reasons I went with new is because I didn't get the bug like I have now when I bought my Jeep. So I didn't
right,
think like I'm going to do all of these things to it. I'm not going to lift it, I'm not going to take it off road. It's not going to have standing water in it from, a water crossing that
right,
was deeper than I thought it was going to be.
right,
So with that being said, if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have liked to have gotten a JK that was a couple years used, just a couple years old that
right,
was properly maintained. But like you were said, do your research on, take a look at it, but also climb up underneath it and see what those skid plates look like. Because you
right.
can see something that's been wheeled compared to something that just looks good going down the highway.
Exactly. You can tell easily, especially on the JKs. I'm not sure about the JLs just because I haven't been around them enough. But you can stick a hose pipe in the frame rail, and if mud starts pulling
Yep.
out, it's been sank in the mud once or twice. Like it's a
Yep.
telltale sign that
Yeah.
it's been in the mud a few times. But yeah, I would just look at it, check it out, and figure out what is best for you. It really comes down to what you want. But when I say used, there's also another whole argument I would say to that is that some people don't want to have to build theirs. They want to buy a Jeep and already have it on 35s, have the axles, gusseted, this, that, and the other, truss, blah, 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 lift kit, everything as far as that goes. And they just want to go ahead and go straight wheeling. I don't think there's a problem with that, but you have to be careful and you really have to do your research because of the fact that you might be getting a lemon. Because why are they selling it? Are they selling it to
Right.
redo their build? Are they selling it because it just has so many problems? They're just tired of it. You've got to figure that out and you've got to research the components on it and know what they are. Because my in
Right.
laws
And
just bought one just like that and they took me with them. And I looked over the entire Jeep and said, I know what that is. I know what that is. Yes, that's good. That's worth money. And we went through this whole process, a checklist of, okay, this is a good Jeep because it has these components on it. These are some of the things you're going to want to change, but overall, it looks good.
Right. And one of the difference like with where we started out at is I started out in the Rubicon. It's
Right,
got the Dana 44 up front and rear.
right.
It's got electronic lockers front and rear, but you didn't start there. You did
No,
start with the Dana 30, which you can put a lot of abuse on and it
right.
still hold up, but it's not got the same shaft, axle shaft diameter, tube shaft diameter as the Dana 44.
And even a Dana 44 Rubicon versus a Dana 44 Sport is different. So the spline count's different
Right.
in the rear. So you also have to worry about that. Now that's not as big of a deal, but yes, I had the Dana 30. So before I blew it up, because I knew it was going to happen, it was a ticking time bomb, and I wanted to be able to sell the axle before I totally grenaded it. I decided to buy an Ultimate Dana 44, which is the beefed up version. It's got bigger C's, and what I mean by that, it's got the where it connects to the knuckle on the end of the tube. So if this this is your tube, this is your C. It's got beefed up C's, and a lot of people reinforce those. Like, in your case, they could reinforce those on a Rubicon, but mine already came that way reinforced when I bought the aftermarket axle, and most aftermarket
Right.
axles are like that. But that's what I did to mine to make it that way. It already had a locker in it when I bought the Ultimate Dana 44, and all I had to do was lock the rear.
Right. So did you go
So
with electronic lockers or did you go with the ARB air locker?
I went with e-lockers.
Okay.
One, I think they're more reliable. Air, you have to track it down. If you got an air leak, it's a constant tracking down issue. With an e-locker, it either works or it doesn't. It's either getting power or it doesn't. Like, there's a few things wrong with it. Um, if you got the power going to it and all the wires are going up to it, well, then you just have a locker problem. But if you have an airline,
Right.
it could be inside, it could be outside. It's going to take time to find that leak. So that's why I went with it, and it's held up perfectly
Yeah.
fine for me. And we've wheeled quite a few places. So let's go into the next. We could talk all day about what to look for in a Jeep, and like I said, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below, and we will do the best we can to answer those. We literally could talk about new versus old all day, but it really comes down to what you want in a Jeep, how you want to wheel it. Do you want to go down the road? That's perfectly fine. It really depends on that. But when I get used, do your research and find a solid rig. So whether that's a Cherokee, a Wrangler, a JT, just do your research. So how to get involved? So you've bought your Jeep, whether it's already built Jeep, a new Jeep off the showroom floor, or just a nice solid used Jeep like I bought myself. How do you get involved, Clayton?
Well, I think one of the first things you do is get on Facebook. There's a Jeep club pretty much in every town, but it just depends on what they actually do as part of
Right.
their, get-togethers. Do they have parking lot, you know, showcases basically like you do
Meet and
old
greets.
classic cars? Or do you actually have trails around that people meet up and go explore? And I really
Right.
think that's one of the first places you can get is your local Jeep club, Facebook. There is events like you put on down there in Alabama, but then you also have nationally, Jeep Jamboree.
Right. Right. And then coming up, the Polidora Challenge. So you have these
Right.
Jeep events, and so you have these different Jeep events, which we can say now that I will. Little side note that I will be attending the Polidora Challenge, and I'm really excited. It's going to be able to go down there and be with our good buddy Clayton. So we're really excited to come down there to Polidora Challenge. So if you get a chance, come say hi. If you're out there wheeling.
Yeah, the Paladar Challenge will be actually the end of September of 2022, outside of Amarillo, Texas, or Claude is the closest little city at the Figure 3 Ranch.
Yep. So I'm really excited to be out there. It's going to be a great time. So let's jump back into it. Jeep clubs, Facebook groups, go check them out, and events. If you can't if you don't have a local event, you don't have a local Jeep club, I highly recommend. Well, if you're in Alabama, come check me out. That's fine. But if you're in some crazy state, go to Jeep Jamboree. That's how I met our good buddy Clayton right here.
Right.
You're gonna make friends.
Yeah, and like we talked about in the last episode that we did together, the Jeep Jamboree is great because it has different levels from the very
Right.
easiest, whether it be a stock Jeep with no driver skill, or a very built Jeep with no driver skill, all the way up to get where you're like, is it really a Jeep still, or is it more like a buggy
Right.
type
Exactly.
groups that you can get into?
And you're gonna meet people, and they're gonna be able
Hmm.
to. It's like networking for off roading, or just have just a group. It's like Facebook, but in real life. Is the
Yeah.
best way I can say it, because you're getting to meet a ton of people all at one time that have the same passion, same love for going off road and Jeep. And so it's just a big network. And like I said earlier, no affiliation. We don't. We're not paid to say it. But it's just helping people and growing the community as a whole.
Right.
So let's
And
get it.
one of the great things
Go
about
ahead.
it is I've actually seen people that I've met at previous events out and about on the trails, whether it be out in Moab for a long weekend, up in Ouray, for
Right.
some of the mountain trails that they've got. It's just you actually get a group of friends that do the same things that you do, and you
Right.
inevitably are going to cross paths.
Absolutely. So let's get into our next topic: mall crawler versus off road rig. So this is like from one end of the spectrum to the other end.
Yeah, and a mall crawler, you know, it it can be an off-road rig, you know.
Yes.
It it's just, do you actually take it off road, or do you have, the kind of stuff on there that it looks good going down the road? It might look good, at the beach, with the top off one day, but are you really going to be taking it off road? Or do you actually have a Jeep that you don't mind scratching and, putting it through its paces?
Right. Exactly. And when we say mall crawler, don't take offense to that. That is just some. That is a, I guess, another slang word for saying that you just like driving it down the road. You like the big tires. You like the big rims. Um, you like all the fancy stuff, and that's perfectly fine. But this is really, I think, our podcast is, was I would say, or the show, sorry, the Waypoint X Insider show, is really, this episode is more geared to the off road side of things. Whether you want to go down a dirt road that is, in my world, is like 600-1, I consider that a dirt road. I've seen like a Prius on it and stuff like that before. That's fine. It's still going off road. It's in the national Talladega National Forest. I think that's cool. That's fine. If that's all you ever want to do, super cool. But there is another world out there that, if you are willing to, tear up the skid plates a little bit, I'm not saying you have to take off the side of your Jeep or just gouge every side panel. That is not what we're saying. I'm just
No,
saying just a
not at
little bit
all.
further, and you can see a lot of the world, and it's absolutely amazing. But I think the first thing, if you're going to do an off-road rig the right way, in my personal opinion, I know I might get some flack for this, and this is your saying, Clayton, I think, that you use all the time:
Yep.
lockers before light bars.
Before light bars.
Because so there's a lot of people out there that will spend a lot of money on some light bars, and I promise you, you won't use them besides in the parking lot. But when you're on that trail, which I'm fine
They're
if,
on.
like I said earlier, if you want to do that in the parking lot, that's fine. I'm not saying that's not cool. I love turning my lights on in the parking lot too, just like with the best of them. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to off road, get you some lockers, because it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as you start out, like whether you started out with a sport, you started out with a Rubicon. Once you get lockers, it really opens up the whole new world of trail capability that you have, because
Right.
you can set your tires to spin at the same time, and it
Right.
makes the obstacle, uh, you know, plausible. Because if you didn't have lockers, there's not a way you're going to be able to get it up there.
Or you're going to have to really hit it hard and hammer your Jeep and potentially tear up your Jeep worse. Whether
Yeah.
if you just had lockers, it'd probably just crawl it.
Right, because you don't want to
So,
bounce it. You don't want to scream the tires. Every once in a while you got to warm them to get some traction. But rarely, if ever, do you want to be bouncing your
right.
Jeep.
Yeah.
One of the
Because it's not the bouncing that's the problem, it's the sudden stop that breaks stuff.
Which is when it catches with traction. That's the sudden problem.
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Now, one of the things that you talked about earlier was, like it's my saying, lockers before light bars. But one of the things you really got to think when you're gonna be, creating a better Jeep is a lift and all the things that then come from that. So
Right.
what did you
So
put
when you
on your
lift
Jeep
it,
once you bought it?
so what did I do? I did the lift in stages. So I came from the thing that I knew what I wanted, so I went with like a I think I did a Terraflex like leveling kit first because that's what I could afford. Then I went to like a 2.5 inch rock crawler kit, and then I put like the spacers back on because I wanted a 3.5, and then I eventually bought the 4.5 springs because I knew that's where I wanted to be at. And I bought the arms as I could afford them as well. I think I did like the front lowers first, and then I bought the uppers, and then I did the rear. So I did it in stages. Now it came all from one kit. It's just how I could afford it.
You
I
piecemealed it
did all of
together.
that. Right, but it wasn't Frankenstein where you had this from one company, this from another company. It was all from the same company and one kit.
Right.
That's how I had to afford it. And then I think it was before we really started. It was actually before the Arkansas trip that we got the Ultimate Dana 44 because I knew like,
Okay.
hey, we're going out there wheeling. We're on 37s. I'm not putting 37s on a Dana 30.
Right.
So really, when we started to like really adventure out, and we were driving that Jeep not only from Alabama to you know Arkansas, we weren't trailering it. So I was like, I've got to make it home.
Yeah.
So I started making it better. That's what the first things that I did because, and if you're in the boat of a Rubicon like yourself, whether you've done them or not, I think some solid things are to gusset the seas and put. I think you've put some armor on the control arm brackets
I have.
because rocks are gonna hit those. Like it's
Yeah.
going to happen, whether you like
Yeah.
it or not. And skid plates, that's what they're meant for.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Clayton. So what have you done to your Jeep to upgrade? I know you've done some trusses, not trusses, but some skid plates and stuff. I know I've done an evap canister as well. But what's some stuff that you've kind of done to beef up your Jeep?
So I've just got, the regular, 2.5 inch Rubicon Express lift. I've actually unfortunately had to do my drive shafts twice. So I upgraded the rear and the front from the factory drive shafts, and I went with a company that at the time it was what I could afford. They did great. They held up for 3 or 4 years, and then I started getting some driveline issues, and each one of them ended up snapping at the
Wow.
U joint, thankfully. But on the front one, it came around and smacked the transfer case and cracked that. The one in the rear, thankfully, ejected itself on the highway without any problems. So I've started to learn that if you're going to do it, just save your money for just a little bit longer than you want to and do it right the first time. Because I
Right.
ended
And we
up
had talked
going
about
with
that last
Woody's.
last episode.
Right, because I ended up going with Woody's drive shafts, and I haven't had a problem with them since. I've got no vibration, I've had no issues, and they've seen some rocks and some abuse. Well, not necessarily abuse, but they've definitely seen some use. But I think one
Right.
of the things that people get in trouble with is whenever they figure out they're going to lift their Jeep, going with wheels and tires that don't match what the expectation of their Jeep is.
Right. And I would also say, like I have Adams. I'm a big supporter of Adams, and I know you have Woody's. What we're saying, like I haven't had a problem with my Adams. Just get a brand that is reputable and that stands behind their product and that has, I'm not saying warranty, but they just stand behind it. It's a solid, like if everybody else has it and it isn't having a problem, do some research because they're going to let you know in the forums and everything. And I know you have to
Yeah,
kind of pick and choose which ones you want to look at, but go with a solid brand. Like my bumpers and stuff are all Rusties, and I promise you, I beat them to death. Absolutely beat them to death, and they haven't fallen off yet. So go with a solid company because if you go with the Amazon brand, I guarantee you they're gonna bend, bow, and break. I've seen them in person every time,
yep.
every time.
So with the wheels and tires, I think that's one of the things that people can really get in trouble with is getting something that's shiny or flashy or color matched to match all of the accessories on their Jeep. because they want everything to be the same color scheme. I think that's one of the problems
Right.
is
And then you take
because,
it off road.
yeah, and you just scratch it
Mm,
up. So I think one of the best tires that you can get is a steel wheel with the right back spacing.
right. The only problems you come into steel wheels if you do air down too low, you could possibly bend the wheel. But
Hmm.
like I use beadlocks. I love beadlocks because it's a kind of cry once, pay once, cry once type deal. And so that's why I like them. I can air down really, really low, and I can get away with it depending on what tire I'm using. And I think we talked about that a little bit last episode.
Right.
Um, and so and we won't go back into that, but buy once, cry once because you're gonna pay for it down the road again.
Right.
Same with like you were talking about your drive shafts. Um, buy the wheel and the tire that's going to best suit you on whether you're going down the road and you're just going to meet and greets and you're having a good time going out and doing that kind of stuff and you've got the flashy chrome wheels and color match, that's cool. But if you're going off road, no, you're going to get them scratched. They're going to get beat up. And I'm not saying that they're going to get beat up where you just have, it just looks horrible. It's just going to be a wheeled Jeep. And
Right.
you're more than welcome to come. I'll take pictures of mine all day and send them to you. Mine is not beat up down the sides. It's just the wheels
Right.
are scratched up from rocks. It's just going to happen off road. So we could talk about that all day. I do have one more thing though, and I'll let you get to your point about the mall crawler versus off road rig, and it's a pet peeve of mine because I think it's a safety issue, and I'm gonna get some hate mail on this one. I guarantee it. I already see it coming. Clayton and I went over these notes the other night before we did this the filming of this episode. Is harnesses on stock seats. So a lot of people will put the stock harness bar, or a harness bar, aftermarket harness bar behind, and put a 4-point harness system in the stock seats. Guys, it is not made for that. Now they say you can do it. I could be crazy, and if you have a reason why I'm crazy, I would love to know. Please email me. I want to know if you think it's safe, please, because what happens is the harness bar sits lower than the seat. The seat sits up. The harnesses come up and over you and down. Now the lap belt's fine. That's where it needs to be. I mean, it's not going to be any different on a different, an aftermarket seat because I have aftermarket seats in my Jeep. But but in aftermarket seats, they come out right here and go down, and they're flat across your shoulders. But the stock seats, they're up here and come down. That is a big safety thing because if you flip over, there is nothing to hold you into the seat. It's supposed to hold you down and into the seat, and there's not supposed to be a gap right here. Go look
Yeah,
at any NASCAR.
you're almost wearing it like a backpack, like it's pulling you
Exact,
down.
exactly. Go look at any NASCAR race when they buckle up, or off-road race like the Ultra 4 cars or King of the Hammers, the Baja, and all that. They're all tight to the shoulders. It's for safety. I'm not putting a 4-point harness system on in a Jeep to go down the road. I'm just not. I'm using my seatbelt because that's what it's made for. But when I am on an obstacle, like let's say, uh, I just mind blank. Clayton, help me out. Moab, hardest trail Moab.
Yeah, Pritchett Canyon.
Yeah, Pritchett Canyon. I wore my harness on like everything because I was the first one to go up, and I was like, "Let's lock in because I think I'm about to die." So, I mean, that's why you use the harness, and or if you're going 100+ miles an hour off road, going through whoops like the Ultra 4 cars do, that's what it's made for. But please, guys, it is so unsafe not to have that up on your shoulders. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I completely agree. It should pull you down, and you should be wearing it like a backpack.
Thank you. So I'm going to get a lot of hate mail on that, but I think it needs to be said because I see people do it all the time, and it scares the crap out of me. So, like we said before, our next little segment is you don't have to beat up your Jeep. We're just going to quickly run through this one because we've already kind of said most of it. Go do Jeep jamborees. Like we said, about to do the Polidoro challenge. That's another one that you can do. We also have like what we call, we're going to come up with it because we've done some stock rides, but we're going to have the Waypoint X stock challenge. So if you're a stock Jeep, we're going to take you out to Stony and let you show you what the stock Jeep can do. Now we've done a new Jeeper day before, but we want to do the Waypoint X stock challenge. I think it'll be pretty cool. But we're going to get into our last point. Sorry, our last major point before we close out for tonight. Sorry if you're watching it in the morning. We're filming this at night. But we want to do the top 5 things to have in or on your Jeep. Now, Clayton's list is going to be different than mine, and that's totally fine. So you're probably going to get anywhere from 7 to 10, if not more, things. But just some things that I wrote down. And so what I think the best way to do it, there is in no particular order that we're saying these. But I'll say one, Clayton, and then you can say one. We'll kind of hit, different back and forth. So the number one thing I think you got to have on your Jeep is tow points. Tow points, I can't pull you out any other way. We don't want to be strapping to an axle or a rim. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're gonna have to have tow points, front and rear, and they need to be secure. You really don't want a hitch or, with a ball on it because
Right.
that ball is just a potential, projectile if it pops loose.
Absolutely.
Really, shackle mount and a big, nice steel shackle with a soft shackle on it is the preferred connection for that because you can get a closed system with different type of hooks that replace the standard hook on your winch. Is also
Right.
something to think about.
Yeah, I would definitely do that. Like I think we have the Flat Link E from Factor 55. Um, I would use something like that, and so I'll try to show a picture of what that is. We both have that, Clayton. It's really made to put on a stock Jeep's tow point, front
On the
bumper
front, yeah.
on the
Hmm.
front. You can also put it on the rear. I think we've used it on the rear a few times of a few Jeeps, but it works really really well. And so I would do that more than a hook because the clasp, the little clasp always breaks on like majority of the people out there's, hook, and that hook can fail. So if you have that closed system, it's a lot safer. And like Clayton was saying, the soft shackles, we'll talk about that here in just a minute, but way better than D rings. So what would
Uh,
be one of your things?
my next thing is especially where we will down in the Palo Canyon system is a fire extinguisher and a good one. You don't have to have the
Yes.
big giant ones, but you do need to have some fire, suppression system in every single Jeep. Because if a fire happens, whether it be under your engine, from your catalytic converter getting some grass too hot and it catches it on fire, you're going to use yours to try to save your Jeep, and then somebody else is going to be coming from behind you with their to try to put out the fire before it gets too big.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Clayton, on the fire extinguisher. I've used mine. Not I haven't used it wheeling, but I was actually driving down the interstate with Caitlin, and there was a car fire on the side of the road, and we were able to put the car fire out and basically save. We weren't able to save the car, but we were able to save basically the actual compartment where all of the guy's stuff was at. So it was just in the engine bay, and if you have that fire extinguisher readily available, you're able to, put that potential fire out that could burn your Jeep to the ground, and you definitely don't want that. So
Absolutely.
on to the next one. I'm actually going to put this one. We didn't say any particular order, but I'm going to jump ahead. I think you need to have a first aid kit. Now, if you want my first aid kit or what I would pick for a first aid kit, leave a comment below. We possibly might do a video on that in the future. But I would just go to get a solid one. You want some gauze, you want a tourniquet, scissors, different things of that nature, so that you can potentially bandage somebody up. Aspirin's always a good thing. Ibuprofen, things of that nature. Burn cream, or bee sting cream. You can get that as well. But just some different things, and I think that kind of rolls into your next point, Clayton.
Yeah, and my next point would be a quality set of gloves, and you could really
Yes.
say gloves and recovery gear.
Right. Yeah. So that you got the first aid kit for anything major. Then you got gloves because that protects you, so you won't have to use the first aid kit. Hopefully, you know.
That's true.
So use your gloves, use your safety glasses, things of that nature that you should have in your recovery gear. But I think basic recovery should be at least minimum in a Jeep, whether if you have a winch or not. I think a winch is a big one, but that's not one of our top 5. I definitely would encourage you to get one, but at least have a 20-foot tow rope and a soft shackle so that we can pull you out.
And on your soft shackle, it needs to be one with just looped eyelets. You don't need any metal hooks because, like we were talking about with the hook on a winch, it's just something that has the ability to fail. A nice, thick toe strap really can get you out of a lot of positions that even if you don't have a winch, you can give somebody a small light tug. And if you are going to be really pulling somebody out of some deep sand or mud, a kinetic rope would be the more appropriate choice in that situation.
Right. And to give a little shout out to Rhino USA, they have been big supporters and help us out here with all the recovery gear. I would definitely go check out their all their toe straps. They've got all kind of tie downs for different vehicles, UTVs, all that kind of stuff. But their soft shackles are probably one of the best out there, in my opinion, if not the best. I think they are the best. I've been using them for quite a while. I have like 5 or 6 in my Jeep at this time, but I go a little overboard since I do teach a class, and you never know when you're going to have to hook up like 5 snatch blocks to get out of something. So I'm always like worst case scenario, and I've used their toe straps countless times, and they've never failed on me. So big
And like
shout
you
out
were
to them.
saying, with the Factor 55 ProLink, the E
Yeah, flat
ProLink,
link. The flat link.
uh, yeah, that is designed to hook on the front hook of a stock JK. But you also got to be thinking how to get yourself out, but also somebody that you might experience on the trail. And maybe they
Right.
don't have hooks on the front or rear of their bumper, but they have, shackle tabs, but they might not have any shackles. So
Right.
you need to have a shackle with a soft shackle and then your rope, whether it
Right.
be a toe strap, kinetic rope, or just really a tree saver, because no matter what you're winching off of, you never want to be wrapping that line around the tree, the rock itself, and
Right.
connecting the hook back to itself. That's where you need a tree strap
Absolutely.
or a tree
Abs-
saver.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I would say probably majority of the time, like 8 out of 10 times, you're using it for somebody else versus yourself, and
Pretty
usually
much.
they don't have anything. That's
Correct.
how that's how it happens.
Yeah.
Going back to the first aid kit, I think we had talked about this, Clayton, earlier when we were just talking about it. Going back to your first aid kit, we might have talked about it earlier in the show. Was you need to know about people's medical conditions while out on the trail, and that goes back to having the first aid kit and having things like crackers and snacks and stuff like that, extra water, and I think you could tie that in with the first aid kit where you have water, and that's almost part of first aid is water, crackers, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Eh,
Because you never know if somebody's sugar is going to get too low. They might become a little disoriented and they really just need a little glucose in their system. But then also to know the people that you're wheeling with, you need to know if somebody, for example, we had somebody that was down in the Paladura Canyon with us and she got bit by what we thought was a wasp or a bee at the time. And she was deathly allergic. She had her EpiPen ready, she had her Benadryl ready. We were already planning, if she started to actively have an issue, what's the quickest way to get from where we were back to the main road,
right,
back to the main hill to get up and out of the canyon as quick as possible. But thankfully, it didn't bite her and, it didn't cause any issue. But to know the people that you're wheeling with, what they might have that could cause an issue.
right. I think that's huge. So I think that is like the top 5 things. We kind of went over tow points, fire extinguisher, first aid, recovery gear, gloves, Factor 55. And if you wanted to add some things on there, I would highly encourage you, especially if you're wheeling alone, to have a winch. At least it can get you unstuck and get you out. If you're wheeling in a place, and these are some just extra, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I would if you're going out, especially like the Rubicon Trail or things of that nature. I know this goes to more the new Jeeper, and you're probably not going to go do the Rubicon Trail like your first trail right off of buying a Jeep. But have a satellite phone. If you don't have cell service, I can't come get you, or someone else can't come help you. So think of those things. Really try to prepare yourself. Don't go with an empty Jeep. Have that first aid. Have the recovery gear. Have those things in your Jeep, because if you go out there with nothing, you could be in a very sticky situation quickly.
Right, and especially let other people that aren't going with you know where you're going, when you plan on being back, so that if there's an issue, they're the ones that can call the authorities and let them know that you missed your check-in time.
Right. And there's a lot of different products out there that will send SOS messages and things of that nature. So you might want to look into that. Those are we're just giving you the main things that we consider our top five. All right, guys, and right before we leave, we want to do some closing points. And this is basically, no matter what you do, number one is have fun. Clayton he can contest to this, that having fun out there is the main goal out on the trail. Number two, it's your money. You do with it as you please, whether you want to be going down the road and that's all you want to do, or you want to be a rock crawler, or you want to be an overlander. Whatever the case may be, I think you would agree with this. It's your money. You spend it how you want to. Make it yours. My Jeep is completely different than Clayton's. Clayton's is different than mine and different from the next one. Make it yours. So everybody's going to be different, and that's why I like going to meet and greets, and especially us going out to the Paladura Challenge. You're going to see different things that you like and be like, man, I want that on my Jeep. And then you'll go to the next one and be like, I like that. I like that. So do that. It's all one big family. I mean, shoot, Jeep family is one big family, whether you're on a Wrangler, an XJ, you name it, TJ, LJ. Shoot, we met Clayton, and now it's history many years later, so
Yeah.
we're still willing with him. We're getting old, Clayton. And always ask yourself, where's your next destination? So you should always be asking that, because I think we said it in the last podcast, Clayton, that you've said every time we go on a trip, we're
We
always
think.
planning the next one. Yeah. You look ahead. You always plan for the next one. And we're trying to enjoy the trip that we're on, but we're already planning for the next one.
That is no
So
lie.
so you just, live in the moment. We're not promised tomorrow. So you just live in the moment and keep enjoying life. But guys, we thank you, Clayton, for coming back on the show and talking about everything a new Jeeper needs to know. Hit that subscribe button, leave us a like, leave us a comment, ask us any question below. Clayton and I will answer those the best to our knowledge. Hit the bell for all notifications so you can get more content just like this. Go check out our previous 2 episodes. So this is number 3, but the first one was Caitlin and I about how Waypoint X started, and the second one was all about our good buddy Clayton here and just his Jeep, I guess, upbringing or experience.
Yep.
And so go check those out. And so, guys, we really do appreciate all the support. We hope y'all have a great day, night, whenever you are watching this, and hope to see you guys on the trail. Have a good one.
Take care.